only note I had was this, this kid was a bit of a punk, right? I'm thinking, he's a punk. He's the junior wireless operator called Harold Bride. So anyway, I literally thought, well, I've got absolutely no chance. I've got nothing to lose. I'll learn the lines, for God's sake, Craig, and just do it. And about 2 days later, I got offered the part. And rather than be absolutely ecstatic, because I was 25 at that point, I said, well, who's playing the lead?
Titanic Talk with Nelson Aspin and Alexandra Boyd. Here we feature stories from the independent documentary Ship of Dreams Titanic Movie Diaries and everything else to do with the iconic ship. From James Cameron's epic groundbreaking movie to the history and legacy of Titanic herself. Join us and our special guests as we continue the 25th anniversary celebrations of Titanic. This is your first-class ticket to everything aboard the Ship of Dreams.
I'm Nelson Aspin, and we're back with more Titanic talk. And today, we're in for a treat because our special guest, his affiliation with Titanic is from the film itself, the James Cameron film. And of course, Titanic Movie Diaries, the Ship of Dreams documentary, so beautifully done by Alexandra Boyd. She has a long relationship that goes back 25 years with this individual. My charming co-host, Alexandra Boyd, will you do the honors?
Yes, of course. Our very special guest is Craig Kelly. Is that you doing an SOS?
Yes. Well, I know it's the first time I get to use the SOS.
I thought it was a new form of like grunge music.
We're going to all going to burst into song. Craig and I, of course, met, well, not on the set of James Cameron's Titanic, but at the Real Del Mar, which was the hotel resort where we all stayed for all.
Is this another margarita story?
No, there's a margarita story. Yes. Craig, tell us just a little bit about who you play, how that came about, because everybody's going to know you, but I want you to tell us from the first you got the call. When did you get the call?
Yeah, well, what happened was it was a time when I would get like a self-tape. It was before self-tapes were sort of what they are now. And in my experience, I've done about 20 of them, and I'd never got a sniff. So anyway, I went in for this one, and bizarrely, I don't know why, but I wore like a sort of like a white and blue striped T-shirt. Maybe subconsciously, I thought nautical, right? And I did it, and the only note I had was this, this kid was a bit of a punk, right? I'm thinking, he's a punk. He's the junior wireless operator called Harold Bride. So anyway, I literally thought, well, I've got absolutely no chance. I've got nothing to lose. I'll learn the lines, for God's sake, Craig, and just do it. And about 2 days later, I got offered the part. And rather than be absolutely ecstatic, because I was 25 at that point, I said, well, who's playing the lead? That's the true story.
Who's playing the lead, and why isn't it me?
Yes. Oh God, yeah. Oh yeah. I mean,
so were you auditioning to play Harold specifically?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
well, you got the part you auditioned for.
I got the part that I auditioned for, but in my head, it was only sort of later with the experience of it, because it was actually the smallest part that I'd ever played, because up until that point I was the lead in everything that I'd ever done. So
sorry, Craig, none of us knew the size, or like when you heard you got the job, it was a film and it was going to shoot in Mexico, and it was James Cameron, et cetera, but in your mind you didn't ever imagine it was the film that it became and as big as it was. So
of course not.
Clearly it all sort of fell into place once you realized that.
And plenty of actors didn't survive the edits at all. I mean, you made the cut. They had to put in Harold Bride.
Well, here's the thing, though, right? So in the original script, I had 6 scenes. Nice little role because it showed the cheeky side of him, which later on you actually saw in the deleted. 10 years later, I think they put about two or three of my scenes in the 10-year anniversary. And I'm not blowing my own trumpet, but a lot of the critics said, "Why did he leave these scenes out?" Because it's really interesting to see the cockiness of this, this young lad. Because obviously the first edit, well, I would say obviously, but it was about 5 hours long, 5.5 hours. So he basically had to be brutal. Which was a shame for me, because me and Jim, as I used to call him, because I'd heard that all his great mates called him Jim, and I was such a cheeky little so-and-so. I'm telling you. I mean, I rocked up in Mexico with this little goatee, and he was with John Landau, is it, the producer? And I basically interrupted them. I said, Jim, can I have a word? And he went, what? I said, Jim, can I have a quick word? He said, about what? I said, it's about your script. And he went, right. So he came up and he said, what about the script? I said, well, I mean, it's lovely and everything. It's a little broad. And
a little what? A little broad?
A little broad, yeah. And I said, all it says about my character, and I need more, mate, is enter Harold Bride, 21, junior wireless operator. I went, what am I supposed to do with that? Quick as a flash, he went, he's an Edwardian cyberpunk.
I mean, and that, I've seen that or read that or somewhere that's already in my consciousness that he said that to you, and it really shows you the canny mind of Cameron, and the fact that he was able to give you that sort of contemporary analogy, and that's exactly right. I mean, that's exactly what Harold Bride would have been. Did that automatically solve the problem for you?
Completely. I turned around to props and said, can I have a small ring for my little finger? No, it completely was just brilliant. It just made me feel great. It made me feel like I was playing this Edwardian cyberpunk, which is what he described it. He was a bit of a punk, but he didn't.
But also, the equipment that they had on Titanic was brand new, and the SOS Morse code was a brand new signal. So you would have been the kid,
wasn't it?
You'd have been the millennial or the Gen Z kid that would have been hired to teach the 35-year-old wireless operator how to use the new stuff, because you had that techie mind. Yeah,
absolutely. And what was amazing about it, because I think everyone, I mean, as you know, he had such an aura. Everyone was terrified of him, but Kate, Leo, and me. He just really liked me, because I was just the only one that would go up to him and go, Jim, come here. You see this shot you're doing here? With the helicopter. And how much is this costing you? It's about like a $1 million take. I went, why are you bothering? This is going straight to video.
You did not say that to James Cameron.
I did. Him and John, they absolutely pissed themselves off him. They thought it was one of the funniest things they've ever heard. I was so ballsy.
Do you remember, because Peter White tells a story in my movie, the escapade on the golf cart from the bar to the restaurant at the Real Del Mar, and you did a huge U-ey.
Yeah, we were absolutely smashed on these sort of dry martinis, because I thought I was James Bond, and me and Peter, I don't know how many we drank, but it was a lot, and they are pure booze. You know what I mean? No messing around. But bizarrely, even though how bladdered we were, I do remember it very well. And it was one of the most fun things I think I've ever done, until I think Peter might have fallen out and nearly broke his neck.
No, he didn't, because he was so drunk, he just did a soft landing.
But he did fall out though, right?
Yeah, he did. He had his
yeah,
beer, he had
out,
beer and cigarettes, one in each hand. I was sitting in the back and safe and clearly hanging on, but he wasn't. So you were trying to swerve these security guards who were like, come back.
Was I driving? I mean, I can't remember. Was it me driving?
Yes, was you driving? It wasn't me driving.
I just thought it was, that's how pissed I was. I just thought it was me and Peter. I didn't even know you were in the back.
You're welcome. And we were on our way to the restaurant. Anyway, that was the beginning of the naughty.
So was it the three of you, or was there a fourth in there?
No, there was just three of us. I don't know. I don't remember the martinis. I do remember the margaritas, but with that, those.
I actually had the martini in my hand while still driving. And the fact that I was the driver, I mean, that just says it all. I mean, who did I think I was?
I have another story. I have another story.
SAG-AFTRA would never let that happen these days.
Oh, no. I have another story from Liam Toohey, who talks about when you were all on the inflatable, the capsized inflatable. I'm going to say that again because my puppy is playing with a huge bone. Baku,
I've got a puppy as well.
Baku, no.
I thought you were going to say you had a huge bone as well. That's for another podcast.
My puppy has a huge bone, and he's being very good, but he's. Can you hear him?
Well, I've got a puppy. I've just got a puppy. Like
what
2 weeks ago. It's
what
a show cocker spaniel. One of the most beautiful creatures.
Is it there? Is it there at your feet?
No. She's in her little cage.
Oh, okay.
She's very happy.
Mine's not that my dog is bigger than your dog, but I have a Rhodesian Ridgeback. He's huge.
Oh, I love those dogs.
Yeah, he's lovely, but he's only 9 months, and he's.
They are sweethearts. Yeah, I mean, they'll die for you. They'll rip someone's neck out.
That's why I have him, because I live in the forest. Anyway.
Yeah.
I have a story from via Liam Toohey, who played the baker, that you're doing the scene, also another sadly deleted scene, where you're all, Light Holler, you and he are on the upturned collapsible. Yeah. And James, do you remember the story? Can I get you to tell it, or do you know which part?
I don't really remember.
He didn't even know he was driving the cart. How do you expect him to remember this?
I had no idea. I was the Nigel Mansell of the golf cart.
Okay, so you're all there, and Jim is in the tank, and it's it's only like a tit high water level. I probably shouldn't say that, like up to your chest in the water, and the collapsible there. So Jim's there in waders, and he's going around and making sure everybody looks wet, and he looks at Liam, who Liam sees him coming for him, going, oh god, he's going to dunk me like he's been dunking everybody else, and he goes, no Liam, don't worry, I know that the baker was the last one off the ship and he didn't even get his hair wet, and then he came over to you and he shoved you under the water. That was his final hurrah on you. Like,
oh, that's amazing.
Harold Bride, on the other hand.
But what was funny about that, though, is I was probably still pissed from the martini. I can't remember that either.
Still floating.
Oh, that's hilarious. No, I mean, but as I say, because we did have a great vibe, me and Jim, so much so, I was only supposed to be there for 2 weeks, and he kept me there for 3 months. And basically, I filmed actually the scenes that are in the film. I actually filmed them in the first week, and he wrote another. There was 6 scenes in the original script. He wrote another 6 scenes for me, and I'm thinking he's obviously seen the star quality, the face, the charisma, the cheekiness. He's basically making this film about Bridie.
Yeah.
Fabulous, right? And so I would go to at the end of the day, there'd be this call sheet, and you'd look for your name, and it would say H by my name, and for a lot of the time I thought that meant holiday, but what it actually meant was hold. So every time you would get that hold and you go, I'm not working tomorrow, we'd all be at that bar singing till about 6 a.m. And it was, you can't, at the time, you knew it was special, even little things like that. But I've never experienced anything quite like it. Like the Talent, used to have, who's the Irish guy who was always on the Brian. Was it Brian?
Brian Walsh, who played the pipes. Yes.
Oh, but he was also great on the thing. And then you had the guitar. I was on the guitar. I was singing.
You were singing Oasis. Everyone was singing gorgeous, traditional English, Irish, Scottish folk songs, and you were singing.
Yoan. Alexandra always told me about Yoan.
Yoan sang Mafanwi, and Craig sang Oasis.
Yes.
Wonderwall.
Wonderwall. That, and I'd probably do that every night, wouldn't I?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
On repeat.
Yes.
And probably forget that I'd already done it 17 times every single night. It was just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful experience. And
where does Titanic fit into your life now? Because you've worked consistently. I mean, your Wikipedia page, if it is to be believed, you've really never stopped working. So in the list of your credits, where does Titanic? You said that you've never had an experience like that since, but I don't know. Have your kids seen it yet? I only know you have kids because we scheduled this around their bedtime. So tell me where Titanic fits in your life. When was the last time you saw it?
Well, what's interesting is they've seen my scenes, but up until recently, I felt that they were too young to actually watch the film. But now Frida's 12 and a half, so she's going to watch it very shortly. I don't think they can quite get their head around it. They cannot believe that their muggy old dada is in like Titanic. I mean, and they know.
Even a 12-year-old knows that film. Her classmates. Yeah.
Oh, totally. I mean,
we did a whole episode on Titanic Kids. I mean, just the movie seems to be. Even though it doesn't seem like age appropriate in certain moments, children are very well aware of it. Children that weren't even born when it was made are very well aware of it. It's a fascinating part of pop culture.
I just think it's testament to the genius of Jim Cameron. The guy's a genius. One of the greatest minds that I've ever met. Which is why we got on.
Have you interacted at all in the years since? Have you run across each other or stayed in touch in any capacity?
Here's the thing, right? I thought, this guy's got me. This guy's going to use me in every single thing that he ever does, clearly. Because he's looking at me, he's looking at Leo, and he went, all right, Leo got this one, but, the next one will be Craig. And I was invited specifically to the Raw premiere, and I'll never forget it. I thought, I'm getting invited. Oh my God, I've got 12 scenes in one of the biggest films ever made. There was royalty there, and I thought, well, this is it. I've cracked it. And 9 of them had been cut. So it was a bittersweet night. And I somehow got over it with the help of some martinis. And it was still, the way I looked at it, I thought, I'm in it, he sort of could have cut all my scenes. The fact that he cut 9 was a bit harsh, I felt, you know what I mean?
You know what? You're going to be in the next Avatar movie because James Cameron will listen to this podcast and he'll go, Craig.
Yeah, or he can never say my name right. He'd always go, hey, Craig. I'd say Jimmy's Craig. Crack.
But maybe that was a compliment in Gaelic, saying, we're going to have a crack. That was a good thing.
Yeah, have the crack.
But you and I have talked about the little skirmish.
Yes.
On these many, many nights off, these hold days, the Drunken Hold days, of which became legendary. Weren't you all out somewhere in the town having some fun and something kicked off?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I will tell you this story, but but out of respect for the actor, I won't tell you who I had the fight with, but yeah, I mean, it's quite a famous story actually. I mean, I get stopped. Of all the 14 people that were in that vehicle, I think I've met every one of them down the line, and they've gone, "Do you remember when you battered BB?" Right? Because this guy was a big guy. And it just bizarrely, it was just a weird moment in life where, he was older than me. He didn't like my confidence. He didn't seem to like much about me, which was a shame because most other people did, you know, because I'm a likable kind of chap, right? But this one night, I get in the front, and I won't do his accent because that'll give you a clue. But it was the time when you put the cassettes in, so I got in the front, and I put on the Beatles, and it was "She Loves You," and from the back he went, "Turn that shite off, son." I said, "Sorry." He said, "Turn that shite off." I said, "It's the fucking Beatles. How can you fucking say turn that shite off?" He said, "Do you know what you are?" I said, "What?" He goes, "You're an environmental Nazi." And I said, "That's a impressive phrase for such a cunt." And he said, "Outside now. I've had 6 weeks of you and your shy. I'm going to kick the fuck out of you." And I was terrified, you know, because I thought, oh, you know, this is really heavy. And everyone dived on me and said, "Don't go out there. He will murder you." And I said, I know. And then he made the fatal error of coming round the side of the van, and the window was open, and he put his hands through the window, and he went to strangle me, and I just saw red. I saw red, and the street fighting council estate kid just came out of me, and I just ran right up to him and kicked him in his nuts, and went bang, and it was over. He couldn't believe it. No one could believe it. The shock on his face, and everyone was getting in, looking at me, going. It was, and then I forgot all about it, because then I actually had to fly back to London for a few weeks, and I came back, and I was doing I'm doing the scene where I go, Carpathia's making 14 knots, sir, full speed for them, sir. Said they can be in 4 hours. And then the camera goes on me, and I can remember thinking, this is a big moment for me. And it's quite simply possibly the most hammiest acting I've ever done in a single frame. And, you know, I'll freely admit to that. But as we were rehearsing it, Jim takes me to one side. He goes, "Craig." I said, "Jim, it's Craig." He says, "Craig, I heard you had a fight." I went, "Oh my God, how mortifying. Oh shit, I'm so sorry. How did you hear that?" He went, Craig, it's my movie. I know everything." But
what were the repercussions? Were there any?
No, he said to me, he went, "Hey, I heard you did very well for yourself. Well done." He's a fucking big guy. And that's a true story. And that story, to this day, I've bumped into most of those people that were on that bus, and the first thing you say is, "Do you remember that night when you twatted so and so?" Anyway, it's just, you know.
I'm loving all of the Titanic fans now who are sitting there listening,
trying to figure it out.
The physical description and the accent that you can't do. They're all just making a list of who it could possibly be, and
everybody likes a blind item.
We will never tell. We will never tell.
Yeah, you know what? To be fair to him, we both went to the bar. And to be fair to him, he said, "Look, mate, I was out of order." He said, "You've got some fucking balls," and he bought me a very expensive drink. He said, "Cheers."
And this is all because of the Beatles. It can all be traced back to your choice of cassettes.
Yes, but to be fair, I think if I'd have put on ABBA, he'd have said the same thing. If I'd have put on friggin' Metallica, he'd have said, "Turn that shit off." For whatever reason, he wanted me that night. You know, he wanted to. He actually stood. He found the lights of the headlights. He found his light perfectly, and he rolled his sleeve up. I sort of think he thought that it was a movie.
I was going to say, it sounds very dramatic, and you know, you were saying you were the hammy one. He sounds like he was very hammy. I want to ask you about the sort of, we talked to a lot of the actors from the film who played actual historical characters, and you know, finding out about the legacy of that. Did you have any interest whatsoever then or now in Harold Bride, in the real man?
Do you mean as I got the part?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other than the script, did you, I don't know, do any kind of deep dive into the real man?
On him. I sort of knew that he had, you know, he wasn't Northern, you know, he was from London. So I tried to work on a, you know, a kind of, I didn't want to do too modern a London accent, but I also didn't want to do, you know, one that jarred. So the one that I chose is somewhere sort of in between, really. But yeah, just God, I mean, when I look back, and you know, I sort of look about 12 years old.
You were very baby faced, but
we were all very young, very young,
exactly appropriate for the role.
I mean, how much fun did we have, though, eh?
Oh, it was brilliant. It was brilliant.
I mean,
going through making the documentary and having people read their diaries, and those memories come back to all of them, because everybody has that unique point of view and a unique experience. But really, the crossover, the Venn diagram of experiences is amazing. I mean, I have sat many months over the last 2 years just trying to work out why the film was so popular, and also how lucky we were as performers. You think, you know, not to bring the strike and everything into it, but you know, the United States acting community is in uproar because you know, there are all of us who play these small supporting roles, not the movie stars, the supporting roles without which a big movie would just be 2 or 3 actors. And there are all these people in this, you know, the lower part of that pyramid, and we're being ignored, or they are being ignored, and they're being cut out of these, you know, enormous chunks of money that the big studios are making. And also, we're not given a voice until now. And I feel like just talking to you and all the memories coming back, I can see the bar, and I can see you singing Oasis songs, and I can see Johan Griffith, and I can see Leonardo DiCaprio. Nobody else has those memories like we do. It's lovely. No. It's beyond lovely.
It is, and slightly different note, but similar, how important SAG is, because just because, for example, I wasn't in SAG, so they hired me and they got away with it because I was in Mexico. Now I was 25, and I think I got about £30,000 for it, which was amazing. But if I'd have been in SAG, I'd have got £100,000.
Well,
you'd still be getting money.
Not quite, because they do chop it up according to how many people are Screen Actors Guild members. But yeah, they can still be very creative with their financing.
Really?
And,
but I was told that people got like a lot more by being in SAG than sort of not. And look, I wasn't complaining, you know, still. So
well, Craig, you've never stopped working. I mean, it seems to me like you've had a great deal of success. So at this stage of your life, after 25 years since doing Titanic, what do you say to people starting out? I mean, the actor's life is not an easy one. You've been able to make a living, but that's not always the case for people. Is it a career you'd recommend?
Well, here's I mean, this is a very interesting point, because my daughter, who is extremely talented, I mean, she can do it all. She's an incredible dancer, which I am not. I can dance a little bit, but she is like insanely good.
Strictly Come Dancing would maybe argue differently.
Well, I wasn't great in Strictly, let's face it. I was all right.
My mum was saying, tell Craig, text him now and tell him to keep his elbows up. And I was like, Craig, my mum says, keep your elbows up. And you're like, I'm trying.
Well, I'm telling you, it's funny with Strictly, because in rehearsals, Flavia at the start genuinely thought that I had a chance. Because in rehearsals, this is the bizarrest thing, because as a performer, it is kind of bizarre for me. In rehearsals, I'd say I was 60% better than when I had to do it live, because I'm not like, it's different being an actor. That's what I do. I'd never danced before, and all I kept thinking is, they've got this steady camera in front of you, and all I kept thinking was, for fuck's sake, don't trip up in front of 9 million. And when they used to say, could Craig Kelly and Flavia Kakache please come out and do the waltz? They might as well have said, could Craig Kelly and Flavia Kakache please come to the dance floor and shit their pants? Because it was absolutely terrifying. It was like, why imagine being thrown out of an airplane and not knowing for sure if your parachute or your reserve parachute is going to work.
I always thought that, like, you know, that live element to it is, it must just be terrifying.
Why did you decide to do that? I've had my own offers about reality programs, and it's like, I don't want to lay in a coffin with snakes. I don't want to be hungry. I don't want to sleep on the floor. Like, so was it strictly a financial decision, or was it a great PR? I mean, obviously the audience was huge.
Well, Strictly was the only one that I'd have done, because I'd actually watched a few series, and I said to my wife, I said, that's the only one I'd do, because that's proper graft. That's a proper, like, you know, you've got to put the hours in, and I did, and I was offered it 3 months before we started filming, and my wife went, babe, you barely danced at our wedding. I've never seen you dance. Can you dance? I went, of course. I said, me, with my work ethic, with my confidence, with a world-class teacher. I said, how hard can it be? And she said, babe, why don't you just go and get some private lessons just so you're prepared? I said, I'm no cheat. I was like a lamb to the fucking slaughter. The rest of them, been training for about 3 years.
Who won that edition?
There's a lot. Look, in my opinion, there's a lot of preparation, which in hindsight, if I was given the opportunity again, I wouldn't do the same thing. I was literally.
Who won that year, Craig? Who won?
It was a lovely chap called Chris Hollins, who was actually quite similar to me in the sense that he wasn't the best dancer, but he had a great story. He was an underdog that they sort of built up. And actually, one of the highlights of Strictly for me was I had a massive crush on Dary Buell for years and years and years. When I did my rumba, which was on the first night, I think it was my first dance. So I started it off, and I'm thinking, in rehearsals, I'd smashed it. Flavia's going, you're going to be amazing. And I sort of pretended to be like Danny from Greece. So I had my sort of thumbs in my trousers, and I see this beautiful girl, and the music goes, tonight's your man, completely. And I thought, here we go. I'm going to absolutely smash this. And I go to take my first step, and literally almost frigging fall over. I somehow managed to trip myself up. It's very, very subtle. If you watch it, you'll see a slight. You'll see a.
But that must have played with your head. Never mind.
Oh my God!
It must have played with your head.
Threw me. I completely. I thought, oh my God, just get through this.
Darcy must have spotted it. Did she spot it?
Well, no. Here's the thing. What was the highlight for me actually was I got 22, right? And I was disappointed with that score because Flavia was saying, "No, this is 27, 28. This is a really good interpretation. It's very hard to do the run, but I think you're doing it really well." Dary Buell went on It Takes Two on the Tuesday, and she was outraged. She said, "Craig Kelly's been undermarked." She said that was a 27, 28. That was the highlight for me. Dary Buell.
For American listeners or listeners who aren't so familiar with Dary Buell, who was a prima ballerina at the Royal Ballet for decades, and is one of the most beautiful dancers, ballerinas, and people. She was She was a judge on Strictly Come Dancing, which is the equivalent of that is Dancing with the Stars in the US, but it's, you know, same. A lot of the same judges go back and forth during that season. And I could imagine, yes, if Darcy was in your court, it must have felt really great.
Oh, it was incredible, and you know, because I had a massive crush on her. I mean, I'm talking about, you know, from years before. So. And then to meet her, and she was so lovely, you know, so classy, and just not only an incredible dancer, but literally an incredible person, a really lovely lady. So that was probably the highlight.
Give us the current events. What are you working on now? What do we need to know?
Well, okay, well, I've just done the second series of this show for the BBC called JJFC. So the first series is coming out in October. I think that starts on BBC iPlayer, where I play a Scouse football coach in charge of these kids in an elite football academy.
Nice.
And they made the silly error of allowing me to improvise. So this kid scores a great goal, and I find myself going, "Do you live on Quality Street? They're gonna name a chocolate after you." So it was pretty fun. And then I've got a thing coming out called Boat Story. So in JJFC, I'm kind of one of the leads, but in Boat Story, I've got a smaller part. I've got like, you know, sort of one or two scenes in 5 eps, and it's one of the best scripts I've ever read. And it's by the guys who did Fleabag, The Missing, Tourist, Baptiste, the Williams brothers, Jack and Harry. So that is very, very exciting. That's going to be out I think, in November.
So, yeah. Craig, this is, I mean, with this glittering career that, you know, you didn't lift the glitter ball, but you've had a glittering career. And, and I think you've kind of folded into a podcast yourself. Tell us a bit about Kelly's Heroes.
Yeah, well, what happened was during COVID, I converted my airing cupboard into a studio, and there was no work, and I panicked. I thought, you know, I'm never going to act again. You know, I'm never going to do another voiceover. You know, the whole world is over. You know what I mean? It sort of felt like dystopian, and so I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to phone up all my famous mates, and I've got a format which is basically, I'll get 2 questions from my kids. They don't know who the guest is. And then I'll end singing a duet with the guest, their favorite song. And one of the great highlights of that, I did 15 in the end. And there's been a gap of about 2 years or whatever, where I keep meaning to do series 2. And I think, you know, I'm just about to do it. But the best one for me is the lead singer of the special is called Terry Hall, who is now sadly passed. But if you just listen to just that episode alone, if that's the only one that you were to listen to, I guarantee you'll get goosebumps at the end when he sings his favorite song. And I want to tell you what his favorite song is. And the amazing thing about that was he was pretty much the only one that wasn't my mate. And what happened with that was he followed me randomly on Instagram, and I just couldn't believe it. I was like, this guy was on my wall when I was 9, him and Suggs for Madness. And I was like, this can't be, this must be like a fake, and it's a blue tick. I said, Terry, is this really you? You're really following me? And he just said, yeah, mate, I'm a big fan of your work, Queer as Folk in particular. So I said, what are you doing tomorrow? Sort of thing. And he went, what do you mean? I said, well, I've just started this podcast, and you'd be a sensational guest. And he just went, I'll do it. Let's do it. And
there you go.
I was so in awe of him and so giddy that I had to do it twice, because the first time I I wouldn't say I lost the plot, but it was like an out-of-body experience. And I forgot to ask him the really interesting questions that I wanted to know. So I called him up again, and he went, "How did that go?" I said, "Great, Terry, but can we do it again?" And he went, "Yeah, no problem." So the interview is actually, it's a combination of the two. We kept talking about that we'd meet up and we'd have a pint, and it's one of those lessons that you must learn in life. Have a pint. Go and meet that person. You know, especially if they're your hero or someone.
Drew Kelly's hero. You really did embody the title there. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, let's do another season.
I'm gonna, because I'm at that sort of stage now. But the problem was I was doing everything. I was doing it in summer, and I had a mattress over me.
Welcome to 2020. Welcome to 2020 to now. That's just what we do. Wait, you mentioned your Instagram. What's your Instagram account so our listeners can follow you?
It is Mr. Craig Kelly.
And we'll put that in the notes and everything so people can follow you.
And so we got to wrap this up. But Craig, thank you for your candor, for your humor. Glad to know you're still the same cocky person you were when you were walking onto that set in Mexico. And
apologies to our listeners who have sensitive ears. They may have heard a couple of.
There are no listeners with sensitive ears.
No, thank goodness.
Now is the time. Now is the time to introduce your daughter to James Cameron's Titanic, and we'll do another episode one day where father and daughter can share their reaction.
Yes. What a great idea.
You know what, actually, just finishing on that note, you were talking before about how I would feel about advising anyone about the career that I've taken. Well, for me, it was life-changing for me. It's taken me around the world. It's given me a great life. There's a lot of highs and lows. It's a nightmare at times, but the highs and the experiences are worth it. But here's what's interesting is my daughter, who's extremely talented, 6 months ago said, "Daddy," I said, "yes." She said, "I'd like a theatrical agent." And I said, "Sorry?" She went, "I want an agent." I said, "Why?" She said, "Well, I'd like to play the lead in a musical, like in the West End, then do a serious play, and then probably like a massive show for Netflix." And I said, "Frida, listen, when you're a bit older and you're 16, 17, 18, if that's what you want to do it, and I'll support you all the way. But at the moment, I prefer you not to be like a child actor." And I said, "It's a brutal business." And she said, "Well, you've done all right." Right, okay, yeah, but I've been quite fortunate. And I said, "Look, here's something." Said, "You can do 100 self-tapes, 100 auditions. You can, and they're so rude sometimes. They don't even get back to you. And quick as a flash," she said, "What about the 101st?"
What a smarty. She's an old soul.
Where do they get it from? I mean,
she's an old soul.
It's the people who are persistent, who keep going, who take all that rejection and just get up for one more self-tape, one more audition. Somebody's got to do the job. I always thought, I'm walking around the West End of London going, all these actors are all working tonight. I'm going to turn on my TV. Somebody's going to be on it who's working. Why can't one of them be me?
Well, exactly. Well, the thing is, if you never give up, you're still in the game. If you never give up, if you refuse to give up, it'll come for you. It'll come to you.
But you were hoisted by your own petard, by your own daughter. I love it.
Craig, we got to go. We're so grateful.
Yes, thank you.
A brilliant chat.
Great chatting to you. Great chatting.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, please leave a review. And if you'd like to hear more podcasts like this, hit the subscribe button. For information on where you can see Ship of Dreams, Titanic Movie Diaries, go to shipofdreamsfilm.com. Titanic Talk is a production of Ship of Dreams Film Limited.